Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson had a remarkable relationship. In the early 80s, they frequently appeared on each other's albums. During a London recording session, Jackson temporarily stayed at the home of Paul and Linda McCartney. One night, McCartney told Jackson about the huge income potential of the songs he owned the publishing rights to, revealing that he made large amounts of money each year from other people's songs.
You know, if I had a nickel for every time I've taken a guitar out of the case, or in fact done an autograph, I'd be a rich man by now.
A couple of years later, Jackson bought the Beatles catalog in a deal worth $47.5 million.
I was offered the songs to buy for £20 million. And the problem for me was I didn't want to be Paul McCartney owning John Lennon's bit of the songs. I felt that would be like unfair. I wanted to own my bit of the songs, but I wanted John, or his estate as it then was, to own his side of it. You know, I thought it would be perceived as a bit kind of grabby of me if I just moved in, yeah, I got all the songs. I wasn't comfortable with that. So what happened was I rang up Yoko and I said, we have an opportunity to buy these songs. 10 million to you, 10 million to me, and we'll have it here. And she actually said, I think we can get it for 5.
In 1995, Jackson and the Sony Corporation merged their music publishing business, making them joint owners of the Beatles publishing, along with songs performed by Elvis Presley and Little Richard. The deal netted Jackson $95 million. For a while, it was rumored that Michael Jackson would give back the Beatles songs to McCartney as he did with some of the assets of Sly and the Family Stone. McCartney wrote on his own website that he was not surprised to not be included and was not upset at the apparent snub. He added, in fact, though Michael and I drifted apart over the years, we never really fell out, and I have fond memories of our time together. He was a massively talented boy man with a gentle soul.
He was like a tiny, immature little boy who'd never had the chance to grow up.
When I opened the door, he just opened the door, one of his people opened the door. He was dancing around like Peter Pan, actually, and just said hello, didn't say 2 words the whole time we were there.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Perth for Telethon 1985, Michael Jackson.
When the king of pop, Michael Jackson, came to Perth as special guest for Telethon 1985, he had little to say.
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience to see all the children. I loved it.
Very polite, extremely polite. I mean, as you know, he's never really spoken much on air at all. It'd be a thank you and yes, I'm okay, and that's about it.
And even less to sing about. For the extremely shy, childlike figure, it wasn't a musical visit, it was strictly business.
He couldn't sing and he couldn't dance because of the contracts that he had, and I can't remember whether it was Robert or me, but saying to him, "Look, Michael, you've got to do something. You've got to at least come on the set at the end for the big wind-up of Telethon, because everybody knows you're in Perth."
Well, I'm happy to be here. Everybody has been so wonderful and so kind. It's worth the trip. It's a long flight, but it's worth it.
Really was an astonishing experience, because here I was standing on the set at the end of Telethon with this incredibly talented young man who was able to entertain a couple of 100,000 people at a time in a stadium, clutching my hand and sort of looking at the ground and saying, this is just so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. And I think for me that sort of summed him up.
Janet Holmes-a-Court remembers the deal her husband made. Robert Holmes-a-Court would sell the superstar a rare musical catalogue, including a Beatles collection. In return, Michael Jackson would fly to Perth for Telethon.
Robert sold him the music catalogue that was in the company which we bought in the UK. It owned the Beatles music.
It was a tough deal, negotiated by Holmes-a-Court's right-hand man, Bert Reuter.
And we had given Paul McCartney first right of refusal, but Paul didn't want it at that time, so Michael Jackson's people approached us and we negotiated with him, but the writing and breakpoint condition was that he had to come to Telethon.
But in fact, when Michael bought that music catalogue, I'm quite convinced that it wasn't for the Beatles music, because he never ever did anything with that. It was actually because what was politically incorrectly called, I suppose, the black music. It was the Nat King Cole and all those great American singers and dancers.
Telethon's executive producer, John Crilly, had to make sure it worked.
One of the funny ones was we had to have in his dressing room a very large glass bowl full of Smarties. And that we thought was, well, that's fine, he's obviously a bit of a chocolate freak, but we had to take all the brown ones out.
It was a Telethon weekend Janet Holmes-a-Court will never forget, especially this Telethon garden party.
Yes, and you would remember that too, Alison, where he was driven up to a parking space which was only about 5 metres from the marquee, and he was petrified on the walk from the car to the marquee, that the sun might get on his skin, because he obviously had started on his program of plastic surgery, which is very sad too. But he just was not capable of being in a room with 100 people and feeling comfortable. His social skills were sadly lacking, and I just keep saying over and over again to myself how sad that was. He was absolutely trembling and clinging on, and I don't say that there was anything special about me. It was just to cling on to someone for the security. I mean, I could have been a blanket.
This is how his fans were used to seeing him. But on front stage, before a peak statewide television audience here in WA, Michael Jackson could not do what he does best.
Michael, welcome to Perth, officially. We've had the Lord Mayor's welcome and the thousands of teenagers and youngies and oldies who gathered to see you today. You've had a pretty busy day so far.
Yes, I have.
The Peter Pan with a baby voice, only at ease with children.
Hi. So sweet.
Michael's a very famous singer and dancer.
We had an outside broadcast on the Saturday morning outside the entertainment centre. We were hoping that Michael would arrive there, but we were unsure whether he ever would. And finally he did arrive, and he stood on the balcony above. The crowd just went absolutely mad. Then he walked down to the crowd and there were no real barricades or anything there because nobody expected that to happen, and it was absolute chaos.
But while he was in Perth, there were several secret outings for Michael Jackson.
Interestingly, while he was in Perth, he did go down to Fremantle and record some Aboriginal people playing didgeridoos and clicking sticks and so on. And also, strangely enough, he wanted me to take him to an antique bookshop where he purchased 2 medical textbooks with the most horrendously graphic drawings, sort of, I think they must have been 19th century medical textbooks about skin disease.
We're terrifically pleased that you came, Michael. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest for Telethon 1985, Michael Jackson.